Well, thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. Welcome to Grill the Priest. This is our first event of this type, and I'd like to thank Fathers John and Michael for giving us their time this evening, and for all of you for tuning in. My name is Chris Riches. I'm a journalist on the Daily Express. I cover the Northwest for the Daily Express. I'm a journalist for about 14 years. My children go to St. Catherine's School. I am not Catholic, but my wife and children are. So this will hopefully be a learning experience for me as well. We want this to be fun but informative. So we have lots of questions because lots of you have sent some questions in, and we hope some of you this evening will submit questions. You can do that by using the chat button that appears on your screen. You can type in a question, and hopefully that will be flagged up to me, and we will be able to ask that question, or you yourself can ask that question if you want that to happen. Like I said, we've got lots of questions, so we're going to start. We need to really finish by about 5 to 10 to 8, obviously, because many of you will want to do clap for carers and go outside and clap for the NHS. So let's get started straight away. And we're going to start with questions from some of the younger children in the parish, just to get the ball rolling. Okay, so first of all, Jemima Harrington, Tatiana and Marcus are watching a cartoon series called Superbook, in which each episode is an adventure set in a Bible story. So Fathers John and Michael, by the way, welcome and hello.
Oh, hello.
I'll let you talk now. And so Jemima asks, how do we know that everything in the Bible is true, as a lot of the stories have magic in them, and of course they've been told that magic isn't real? Right. So, to either of you.
Over to us. Yeah, shall I go? Well, good evening, everyone, first of all. It's for me, it's a really good but complex question, because it's actually getting to the roots of how we as Catholics read the Bible. So first of all, I'm glad that Jemima said there isn't such a thing as magic. So that's great that she knows that. And then that word true is very important, because we do know there are lots of seemingly magical things that go on in the Bible, lots of miracles. But as Catholics, we are allowed not to read everything, especially in the Old Testament, as if it happened the way it's described, if that makes sense. So there are different levels of what really happened and what is being communicated. So just to get it clear, everything in the New Testament we believe that really did happen, and we believe that Jesus performed miracles, but we'll get to that in a second. But in the Old Testament, there are lots of stories and different types of literature. So Jemima and all her brothers and sisters will be reading stories in school, and there'll be different types. Some will be poems, some will be adventure stories, some will be different types of stories. I can't think of any offhand. Any other genre is what we call it for the adults. Fairy stories, all sorts of different types of. But what those stories are trying to get across to us is some kind of truth. And in a way, that's what some of these stories in the Bible are doing. Now, some things we do believe, some things we don't believe happened as they're described, and that would take a long time to explain. But it shows how complicated the Bible is. But we're free as Catholics. We're very lucky that we don't have to take it literalistically, as we call it. We don't have to say that God created the earth in 7 days. We don't have to say certain things happened like they did, all those miracles. But we still do believe that God performs miracles, but he doesn't perform those miracles to make us believe in him. The faith comes first. The miracles that are described in the Bible are always for people who believe in God in a deep, profound way. But we don't have as many miracles now when we live because the greatest miracles already happened, and that was Jesus, God becoming man. So that's one of the reasons why there aren't as many miracles now as there were then. I don't know if you want to add anything to that. I know that's a very complicated answer, but for a 9-year-old, that is an amazing question as well. So
I wonder if that's Harry Potter inspired a little bit or something like that.
Yeah, perhaps, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. William Harvey asks the two of you, who is Cain's wife, and who are her parents in that case?
Yeah.
Over to you, our scripture scholar, you see.
Yeah.
Great expense.
That was the Bible's my specialization, apparently. Well, it's related to Jemima's question in a way, because and it's another brilliant question, because if you're just reading, this is in the book of Genesis. This is the first book, that we find in the Bible, the order that the books come in. And Cain is the son of Adam and Eve, and his brother Abel. He kills him, and but then the next chapter it says he's got a wife. She just appears out of nowhere. So if you're believing, again, literally, everything that's written there, it doesn't make any sense. There's no logic to it. Where's this woman come from? Is she Cain's sister, which would lead to other complications, or were there other people on the earth? And of course, as Catholics, we, again, are free to believe that the story of Adam and Eve is telling us this is what the first people did in order for us to become the way we were, the original sin, that kind of thing. So Cain goes off to marry this woman. There's lots of names for her in legend, for people trying to explain, but they have to jump through hoops and things like that. But you just say that we don't know, but it probably is just a woman from another tribe of people. That's our phone ringing in the background. Technical difficulties.
You're not a phone a friend for anyone on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
I hope not.
Right. Okay.
But hopefully that's answered that question.
In the middle of a conference.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to chip in with another quick question. Again, these are nice warm-up questions from the kids. Well, this is one from my own son, actually, Lucas, who's 10. He's indisposed at the moment because he's part-time, but he wanted to know, why is it called Good Friday when what happens on that specific day isn't particularly good?
Do you want to answer?
Right. Well, in itself, it wasn't good, the crucifixion, but the fruits that it bore, the way it revealed how much God loves us, is a good thing that was changed the world, really. Led to the Christianity coming into existence and had a profound effect on so many. And there's a question later on about the crucifix, why that's so prominent within the church. Yeah. Because it speaks of the transforming power of God's love, that he can take something so terrible and make something good come from it. And that's an essential part of what we believe as Christians.
Okay, we're going to, like you said, we've got a question about the crucifix later.
Yeah.
13-year-old George Redford asked the two of you, are you allowed to have a favourite saint? And if so, who is your favourite saint and why?
Yeah, you're definitely allowed a favourite saint. And usually a good saint to choose is your own patron saint. So George has got a great one there. And mine is Michael, and it's great to have you. And then if you get confirmed, you get to choose another saint as well. Mine is Patrick, just because I came from an Irish family. No deeper reason than that. But my favourite saint, I think at the moment, it does change a lot. Yesterday it was St. Catherine of Siena, because that's the feast we celebrated, that's the parish I live in. But it's Ambrose Barlow is my favourite saint, and mainly because he's a local lad. He's from Manchester, so I can relate to him and see, and shared a bit of his journey as well. In fact, he went abroad to train to be a priest and then came back in much more difficult times than we're living at the moment. But it's mainly because he was from Chorlton, from Manchester.
Oh, okay.
And so I feel connected to him.
Yeah, well, I've got John, of course, Patrick as well. That's my second name. And Edward is my confirmation name, and then my mum chose. But when I learned about Edward the Confessor, he was a king of England and a great saint, I believe. But perhaps my favourite is St. John Bosco, because I went to a school that was run by the order he founded, the Salesians, and he's the patron of youth. And he had a wonderful approach to young people, and was able to get on their level and reach out to them. And he also had this great approach that it's a spoonful of honey will achieve far more than a barrel full of vinegar. Just a little sweetness to draw people in. It's better than all the sort of histrionics and shouting and carrying on and condemnations. So I think that's a wonderful example. St. John Bosco.
St. John Bosco. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Archie and Beatrice Irvine wanted to know what the fathers do in an evening in terms of relaxation. Do you watch TV or play board games? Have you got is there a game of Monopoly on the go at the moment on the side there? And this kind of answers the question seeing you, but you can. They also want to know, make sure you're okay to sit in the same room during the pandemic and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm glad they noticed that. Yeah, because when we're at mass, we keep distance because we're trying to set an example. We've been asked by the church authorities to set that example, but of course they've noticed the lack of logic there because we live in the same house. Yeah. We eat together, and we do everything else. Yeah, so I just tend to watch films in the evening or read books or do Zoom conference calls, things like that. No board games yet, though. Have you got any board games?
No, I've not played board games for years, since I was a kid, really. Reading is my great leisure.
Okay.
I've always got a few books on the go of different kinds, so that's what I enjoy to do in an evening to relax.
There's no sports though, so I don't know.
So no. Are you sports fans, the two of you, into football and?
Yeah, I'm football, Man United, and Father John.
Well, cricket. I like to go to watch Lancashire.
Okay.
But, well, up to now I've done. Maybe not this season, but.
Yeah, I don't think you'll be watching certainly much cricket this season. Maybe.
No, it doesn't seem like it. But
you might have to sit with Father Michael and watch some football.
Yes, yeah, I don't mind football. I follow Bolton Wanderers. So, Roll Bolton. At least they're still in existence anyway.
Yeah, I said football, not Bolton. I'm joking. Right. Another really good question. Wanted to know that the two of you, what made you both decide to become priests?
Do you want to go first?
Well, I think there wasn't sort of a light bulb moment, you might say. It's something that grew on me. I was brought up in a Catholic family. Going to Mass every Sunday was very important. And after Mass, we always had a great cooked breakfast together. So it was something special. And I went to Catholic schools. And I think a key thing for me was being given a little New Testament at school, starting to read in that. And it had things like where to find help when troubled or afraid or worried about this, and looked at these little passages, and I found a great consolation and comfort and encouragement and challenge in the scriptures there, and that made me start to really think about my faith. And I was in the Young Christian Workers in my own parish and involved a bit there, and so it's just something that grew. And priests used to come and visit you at home, and they were at school, and so they were always around, and I just began to think, well, could that be for me? I began to think, yeah, I'd like to be a priest if I'm cut out for that. So I just approached my parish priest and the vocations director, and the job I do now, and the bishop, and was accepted to start training. And a long process of discernment, nearly 6 years of like training before you're actually ordained as a priest. So you have a long time, and most of the lads I started with dropped out, didn't go through, so, but all the time you're thinking, reflecting, and, I've never regretted it, becoming a priest. I have to say that I had many blessings and wonderful experiences through being a priest.
Yeah, and again, it wasn't like a big dramatic conversion or anything for me. I was, I went to Mass as a kid, and I was an altar server till I was 16, really, which is probably unusual these days, but kind of took my faith for granted. It was only when I went to university I started to think about why I was going to Mass, and all my friends at university were non-Catholics, so they were full of questions, and I didn't feel capable of answering them. So that deepened my faith to begin with, and made me grateful as well for the way I've been brought up. And then it was, my mum died while I was at university, so that was a big moment about thinking about my place in the universe. It was the first time I had to think of mortality, really. And what happens after death, and then what what is my role, and that sense of, that's the word vocation, that's what we use for that calling. But again, still, I was on the path to become a teacher, really, by the end of university. That's probably answering another question that might come later, but I was just about to start a PGCE course, or at least I was going to go down south to do something. But I stayed up here in Manchester to look after my dad, who was suffering with his mental health at the time. And that was providential, because at that time when I was just working part-time for a company and then looking after him, gave me a lot of space to explore what God was asking me to do. So I got a lot more involved in the parish. My home parish is just down the road in Rusholme. And there just happened to be a young priest there at the time as well, who I started to speak to about these kind of things. And so in general, though, it was a nagging feeling that wasn't going away. Nothing was felt right. And, you know, again, it's providential that I'm in this parish now because of that wonderful phrase that St. Catherine has, that's attributed to her, be who God created you to be, and you'll set the world on fire. It was when I gave in, when I said, yes, God, I think it's priesthood that you're calling me to. That's when I found that peace, and I'm very lucky. I feel blessed that I think I'm almost certain that I'm doing what God created me to do, and that's to serve the people, really. It's that service. The way that children understand it is, you say, oh, I want to help people. That's what they understand. And then they say, well, how does a priest help people? And it's all different ways, but we've all got our own roles, our own callings. And just this was what felt right for me, really, what I believe that God created me to do for all eternity. And then this Sunday, it's Good Shepherd Sunday, which is Vocation Sunday. So that's really good timing as well. So promote vocations.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And lastly, from the children, although the last one was from Barbara Griffin, I'm not trying to say that Barbara's a but lastly, this is from Teresa Adams, whose name rings a bell from St. Cath's. She's age 6, and she asks, why was Mary chosen to be the mother of Jesus?
She was the right person for the job, for the role. And she said yes when she was asked. So
we can't
take it on.
Yeah, we can't really answer. Well, because it's a very good question, but we can't really answer why.
Yeah.
You know, why Mary and not somebody else? All we can say, I can see Teresa there now. She knows it's her question. So it's because it was who, again, that God created Mary for that. She was free to say no, but we can't say why Mary rather than somebody else, but we just know that God did choose Mary for this, and she accepted that vocation, and she was perfect for it, really. So.